how Jim Harbaugh would handle all this, because I covered his tenure. You lived through his tenure. He did this with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and Jim Harbaugh is not half the coordinator that Kyle Shanahan is, but Jim Harbaugh played quarterback in the NFL, and he did a good job. He resurrected Alex Smith's career, and he did a very good job with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, his downfall was later, and it seemed to me what Harbaugh understood was that quarterbacks' egos are fragile and need to be pampered. He understood that. I mean, he went to Chicago and was scapegoated. He was a first-round pick. They all made him seem like he sucked. He was the problem. When he understood, well, it takes some nurturing. It takes a team. It takes a coach. He didn't have that. He went other places, had success later on in his career in Indianapolis, other places. And I think what he did, or at least with the Niners, was pump up Alex Smith. You know, he came here and said, hey, man, you've had 5 coaches tell you you're the problem. My name's Jim Harbaugh, and I say you're good. And it worked. And he really pumped up Colin Kaepernick. I think in this situation, real quick, he wouldn't be talking about Trey Lance with Jimmy on the team. He wouldn't be talking about Matthew Stafford with Jimmy on the team. He would have respect to the starting quarterback. I don't think he would do this limbo thing too. I don't think he would do this.
I agree, but yeah, I do have a question for you because you covered both coaches. And Kyle's hallmark as a head coach, according to everybody, is honesty, right? And that's the one thing that lets him get away with maybe doing things that are maybe a little more difficult for players to handle, because he's always honest and upfront with, this is why I'm doing it, and I'm going to do it for these reasons. And so even if you don't like the reasons, you at least respect the fact that there is an open source of communication. The way, do you think there is, I mean, this is me obviously reading in between the lines, but the Harbaugh Alex Smith situation, to me, it felt a little disingenuous because he believed in Alex Smith. But the moment Alex Smith got hurt, his belief went to somebody else.
Oh, and it was 100% disingenuous.
And it was to such a point that even though Alex Smith went 13-3 with the team in 2011, and he was 6-2-1 or 6-2, I think, and he was coming off the best game of his career, 18 for 19 on Monday Night Football against the Arizona Cardinals. 2 touchdowns to Crabtree, 1 to Randy Moss. They blew him out in Arizona, and he then got hurt. He got his concussion, but he had played good enough football, and he was on the floor in the Super Bowl. Remember? He wasn't. Absolutely. He didn't even get a podium. But that's the whole thing.
Like Jim Harbaugh, he wasn't trying to be honest with the press. He was the opposite of honest. What he thought was his job was to pump up Alex Smith because that's his starting quarterback. And then when he wasn't, forget Alex Smith. My job is to pump up Colin Kaepernick and make him feel like he's the best athlete in the world. That's what he did. And who cares what he really thought? He wasn't trying to keep it real. He didn't have a rep. You know what I mean? He was trying to win. He was lying for the betterment of the franchise, because you have to, because it doesn't matter to keep it real. Who cares that you kept it real? Sean McVay cares because of his podcast.
Honestly, because I think that exact situation is why even when Alex Smith talks about the Niners in comparison to when he talks about the Chiefs, and he went through the situation with Mahomes, there's no lingering saltiness with the Chiefs or anything. He's very happy for Mahomes' success and everything, and he was happy to move to Washington. I do think there was a little bit of something maybe with the 49ers, but I could be grasping at straws. Yeah. Maybe.
But still, I mean, I think Jim Harbaugh handled it the right way. He inherited Alex Smith. He drafted Colin Kaepernick in the 2nd round. He needed Alex Smith for that year. What was he supposed to do? Would be like, look, Alex, I need you to play well, but I just want you to know I don't think you're that freaking good between me and you. It's like, nah, I'm going to pump him up, and if I got to move on from him, then he'll realize that I was lying.
I don't know. Personally, if I had a coach that talked me up the way he did to the media and defended me the way he did, then tried to get Peyton Manning, but that didn't work out, and re-signed me, then I'm the leader of the team. I'm the one who started for so long. And then the moment I get hurt, he goes, even though Colin Kaepernick was special in 2012, don't get me wrong. He was right. He was right.
And he should have consummated the deal. Yeah.
He was right to start Colin Kaepernick too. What Colin Kaepernick did in 2012 is the single best. I mean, I didn't watch Steve Young. I didn't watch Joe Montana. It's the single best stretch of quarterback play I've seen from a Niners quarterback in my life. He dominated football games single-handedly, playoff game. Really but so he was right to do both of those things. But if I was Alex Smith, I would feel like, wow, this dude is not real. He's kind of a jerk. He's like, I don't know. Like, again, I'm grasping at straws, but I don't know which way to handle the situation is better. I personally think the best way to handle this situation in both cases is just not talk. Just not talk about it publicly, not talk about other quarterbacks who are interested in publicly. Because honestly, there's no winning in that situation. That's really my point. There was nothing to lose from Kyle. Like, you can't say that him saying nice things about Matthew Stafford's a bad thing. But what exactly did he do in that situation by saying nice things about Matthew Stafford?
He made himself look good. He helped the podcast. I don't think he helped the 49ers. And that's what I tie this tie this together. What Jim Harbaugh would be doing right now, not that he's the authority on this, he would not be going on Sean McVay's podcast. He would not be talking about Matthew Stafford. He would be saying very nice things about Jimmy Garoppolo because, hate it or love it, he's still starting quarterback on this team, and they got to trade him. He'd be saying very nice things about Jimmy. He wouldn't be talking about Trey Lance very much. He'd be talking about him in generalities and because he's a rookie. But as soon as it was time to make the switch, he would talk about Trey Lance like he's the greatest quarterback in the history of the world. And he would never deviate from that until it's time to get another quarterback. There's no way that being honest about your quarterback publicly helps the franchise. It just doesn't.
And to be fair, I talked about a lot about like Harbaugh being I felt disingenuous to Alex Smith and everything. Whatever I say, he got the results, right? His methodology worked. Right, he got the
opposite is keeping it real, like Kyle does. I don't think
and he took Kaepernick and he went to a Super Bowl and then he went to another NFC Championship game and they were 6-4, looking pretty good.
And again, remember, Harbaugh was the quarterback who felt like he had been unfairly scapegoated and criticized. He has a lot in common with Jimmy. I feel like if Jimmy and Harbaugh were sitting down in a bar, they would have the same gripes about their playing career. And that's where Jim was coming from. That's why he had success with quarterbacks when he had success. And it's something that Kyle could. I feel like Kyle and Jim, if you could combine their strengths and weaknesses, would be just one hell of. They would be the guy that wins the big game instead of loses it. But they have that in common too. Jeremy says, off topic. Do you think Kyle hates the fact that Jimmy has better leadership qualities? Jeremy's a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan.
I can't define either of their leadership qualities because I haven't been around either of them as leaders. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one to say. I know the team followed Jimmy because he came from New England and they won a lot, but it's hard to follow Jimmy when he's, on the bench in the box, taking notes, writing down about the safeties, robot mindset. All right. Rick Holly says, Trey is a better man than to allow for an ego. He is humble and respectful of those that he comes into contact with. Oh, great. I hope so.
Yeah. We're not
That's
saying
what I
that
meant.
this is not going to affect.
Professional athletes have an ego to an extent. I mean, Jimmy Ward has Jimmy Ward's the most down-to-earth athlete I've ever talked to, and I wouldn't say that he might be more down-to-earth than me. He still said in that interview, that's why I make $9 million. The money good. And he should talk that way. I mean, you want your athletes to have a very high opinion of themselves. They're the best of the best. So I didn't mean it in a negative way. I was saying, like, it's actually a good thing that coaches want to. It's not like Bill Walsh was like in his office, like, man, this Jerry Rice, who the hell does he think he is? I got to take him down a peg. Like, nah. I want Jerry Rice to feel like he is the best wide receiver of all time because he is the best. I need him to be the best wide receiver of all time. Be that, Jerry. Talk about it. Think about it. Yeah.
And I don't think either of us were saying, this is going to affect Trey Lance's ego or anything anyway. Again, that the comments about Stafford or anything is not going to affect anybody. There was just nothing to gain from saying anything about Stafford because at this point, again, this franchise is all about Trey Lance. I think that needs to be talked about a little bit more. This franchise is not about Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not about anymore. George Kittle. It's not about Fred Warner. It's not about Trent Williams. When you trade 2 first-round picks, swap a third one, and give up a third-round pick to go get a franchise quarterback, which is what they did to go get Trey Lance, the franchise is about Trey Lance.
And you also said there's nothing to be gained. Jim Harbaugh thought of football as World War II, and it was over the top, and it was kind of like eye rolling. Yeah. But it's like, dude, I everything I say is strategic. And if I'm going to go on some podcast and say something, I'm not just going to blurt out stuff if it hurts the franchise, because that's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to be honest up until a point where Kyle's thinking like, this isn't bad for me. It makes me look, it's good for me. Makes me look good,
Right.
makes Sean look good. And I just don't think he cares or thinks about what the kind of things Jim Harbaugh would think about, who is super paranoid about these kind of things.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
In terms of covering coaches, I'm assuming Kyle is the easier coach for you to cover because he does give respect to every single question for the most part, and he does answer every question the best he can. Sometimes he can go on and on about things a little irrelevant.
For me. Early on, Kyle was easier because Kyle didn't know me, and Kyle answers at length. But I've known Kyle for 4 years, and he doesn't particularly like me or my questions. So there's always just like blowback. He doesn't give me good answers. He almost like purposely gives me bad answers. Whereas Jim Harbaugh would give everyone bad answers. And then when he'd get to know you, if he liked you, he'd give you good answers. And Harbaugh liked me. He loved my dad. So by year 4, I had a great time covering Harbaugh. Like, it was easy. And I almost was like happy because I got the best answers from him. I get the worst answers from Kyle. And it's almost like comical at this point. So I personally preferred covering Harbaugh for that reason.
Okay.
Other people would prefer covering Kyle.
Okay, that's fair.